Hello everyone, Village Astronomer here, and just a very short run through of the images that we took last night. That's not a technical demo of the camera or the scope, and it's certainly not a tutorial. It's literally just a few minutes rewinding what we did under the stars last night. And we're using the Atik Infinity colour camera and a small refractor, and we've got a reasonably clear night behind us, and so we covered a few things. And this first image, I've made a bit of a goof here because I'd put the coordinates in of a comet that's passing by through our solar system, but I fumbled the coordinates and ended up on a pretty star field with no comet. So after having a little bit of a hunt around in this area, I thought, well, perhaps I'll check those coordinates later on at tea break. And just as I thought about that, a satellite whizzed through and left a streak at the top right hand corner. So I know the camera's nice and sensitive, and I know that we're picking up good images, and I can see we've got a nice field there. But from an astronomy point, a pure astronomy point of view, beautiful stars. From a astronomy geek's point of view, where's the fuzzy objects? Where's the pretty stuff? So I quickly swung the telescope to a favourite of everybody's. I'm sure you'll recognise the image. I won't go through all the names and numbers of everything because, one, I don't know them, two, we haven't got much time together for this video, but we'll do more technical ones, more detailed ones in the future. So as I skip to the next image, in the middle of the screen there, we've got the Whirlpool Galaxy, which was hanging right overhead over my little house. Moving the little sliders at the bottom of the screen, I'm sure lots of you will know, these are moving the set points of the histogram that relates to this image, so the bright and dark points, and we can stretch and squeeze the image quite easily and in real time because of the Atik Infinity software. What Steve and Rui made here is something that really has, well, it's created a bit of a revolution in astronomy imaging, because normally I would take these images and then I would bring them back to my study and I would process them and pore over them and look up details and magazine tutorials to try and glean the finest I could get. Whereas with this particular camera and the software provided, it does it for you. And the reason for that is because there's so much to see and perhaps so little time in our lives to see it, that any help, well, it's gratefully received. And certainly I'm getting a lot of help here. I'm just going to pop over and click the stack button, and we're going to pile up a few of these images together. And as we do, you can see very clearly when we've got a few that the background noise disappears and the details start to spring out. And in the background of this very short exposure, there are faint fuzzy galaxies which are millions of light years away across the gulf of space. The very pretty M51 here, pixelating in my tiny little refractor. Really needs a bigger telescope, but I'm sure you'll agree that this is perfectly adequate for what we're doing today. Marvellous. How pretty. Just hang in there. Let's just move on and speed up a little bit, as there's lots to see. Next image, I think, should be a pretty cluster. Not everybody's interested in clusters. I find them fascinating. I also find them very beautiful. But they're not the most popular astronomical phenomenon, I must admit. I don't know why. I find that extremely interesting. What a wonderful place to go and visit. Literally hundreds of stars. all condensed into a blob that we know as a cluster. Now this is an open cluster because they're spread apart. Later on we'll see some globular clusters as things are more disparate and spread around. Now I'll just advance on through these frames. You can see how the infinity helps to get rid of all that unwanted noise and background. And the next picture should be, this is something that I've never seen before, and I've been looking for a long time, and this was the coordinates of what we were looking for in the first place, so I must have a cup of tea now. There we are. Now that's Comet Johnson. Now his full name is C/2015 V2 Johnson. We'll just call him Johnson for the minute until we know any better. Now I think you can see that that comet is sporting a tail. And then just improve things. Another satellite with a few in the stack. Now really we're just taking such a brief number of images here just to give us an idea of what's up and out there and what I'll go back onto later with the bigger telescope. But for the minute I'm chuffed to bits with my first comet. So there's Comet Johnson. If we move on a couple of frames, I've swung the telescope to another set of coordinates. Bang on. Just like buses, two came along at once. So I think you can see there near the pinprick star is the comet nucleus of Comet 41P, which was spotted by someone called Tuttle a long time ago and then refound by Giacobini and Kresak more recently. A longer period comet, which means it comes along, disappears, we don't get to see it for a long time, and then it may of course have its direction, its course changed, perturbed, and then we don't quite know where to expect it again. So picking these things up is quite important to some of us, because we may want to know when we're going to get whacked, because I for one will take a picture of it. There we are. And in this digital age I can take that picture, I can transmit it, and long after this planet has ceased to exist, that little piece of data about what we did will be floating around in the universe for some other civilization to pick up and wonder why. So there we are, just like buses, two comets for the price of one. We'll bomb on a little bit more as time is of the essence. There's certainly sitting out there watching these images come in never gets boring for me. It never gets old. I can look back and review things time and time again. But certainly with this piece of equipment here, with this live view camera, it's making things a lot more interactive and, dare I say, interesting. So it's brought astronomy back to life for me. Let's just do a little stretch on this cluster now. Whoa, that's a lot of stars in there. That is super bright. Imagine living on a planet there. How would you ever get any sleep or see the universe, because you're going to be literally surrounded by all of those stars. Now that's quite a grainy image. I wonder if the infinity can help to start tune the background out a little. It does a little, it doesn't do too bad. There we are, very popular, well-known cluster M5. Looking at my notes here, it's just visible to the naked eye, but that's lying 24,000 light years away, and there's probably around 100, 200,000 stars there, maybe more. And that's wonderful. We'll tune back in on that another time. Oh look, it's a night of clusters for me. I've taken quite a lot of images for this one, so I think that might have been during a comfort break. It's bound to involve getting another cup of tea. Two things with my nights of astronomy: cups of tea and comfort breaks. Okay, now we're really travelling again. Another cluster, seen one, you've seen them all, but not to me. These are my form of train spotting, if you like. I wonder who lives around there. Absolutely fascinating. That's M3, and this What are we looking at here? 34,000 light years, so a little bit further away. And normally any imager worth his title is going to take literally hours and hours on this image to produce something worthy of an award. And what I'm trying to produce here is something worthy of a wow. And I'm certainly enjoying it myself. It has the wow factor for me. Ah, yes, this must have been a comfort break, because we most certainly, whoa, we most certainly took a few images of that. Well, look back at that. Try and process those images up. Now look in here, that appears to be in the middle of the screen. I recognise that. It must have swung over to the aptly named Dumbbell Nebula. Don't quite know what weightlifter is going to be curling that, but we can most definitely see colour, and we can see size, we can see some detail. Well done, Atik Infinity. Isn't that beautiful? Dumbbell Nebula, just over 1,000 light years away, so quite visible, and it's the end of life of a star, much like our sun. So that star has collapsed. It's exploded a huge amount of material, and life on its own planetary systems has quite likely ceased to exist now. And of course, we're looking at that. It's 1,000 years ago, so we don't get a real-time view because of the property of the speed of light, but we do get a view of it. Isn't that staggering? I think we've got another treat coming up in a second, which is the Sunflower Galaxy. So some of these have pretty names, not all of them. Let's just see, what have we done there? Oh, we've got a bit of a blurry image there. So let's press on. What have we got for the Sunflower Galaxy? How's the Infinity helping us improve this tiny little spot, that's about probably all you'd see in a telescope, little telescope, on a bit of a normal night like tonight. However, there we are. We can see the oval of the galaxy and the bright nucleus. Oh, and another satellite. But as we stack a few of these images together and the Atik Infinity reduces the background noise, we may be able to see just a tiny bit more detail. And we can see a tiny bit more detail. You can see some of the spiral arms just appearing. Reduce that nucleus a little. That might be worth processing later, and I'll update you on Facebook with what we get from that. As we rattle through the rest of these images, nearly done. Oh, another galaxy tonight. We've got the Black Eye Galaxy. There it is, straight away, first image. That's why it's called the Black Eye Galaxy, that smudge of obscuring dust across the nucleus. Good old Infinity. If I put a few more in the stack, just a few. Just move the histogram a little bit. It's quite nice. Not too overblown, reasonably detailed. Now, for a tiny 3-inch telescope, that's almost impossible to see as anything other than a dot. But when I put the Infinity camera on it, I can see it's more than a dot. I can see that that's a whole magnificent star system. Again, where are we looking here? 24 million light years or so away. 24 million years for the light to come from there to here, to be recorded on this very simple little telescope setup. How about that? All of these images, wonderful thing about the Infinity, it will give you live view images and help you process straight away, but will also store all of those images in a format that stacking software and processing software understands. We can play with those later. So there we are, everybody. That's just a few minutes of one night, about 4 or 5 hours of sitting under the stars, taking it in. Goodbye.